Hey, if you haven't found out yet, today's Father's Day. And we're doing something just a little bit different. And I'm actually going to invite Dan Cochran to come and share the platform with me this morning. And we're going to just look at a few things that might just help us today to be encouraged. You know, being a father is a big gig. And I believe all of us want to make a good job of it. And probably to this point, some of us may have done reasonably well. And some of us may have thought, well, I've messed up a little bit here and there. If I had it over again, I might do things differently. But today, this morning, we just want to do a few things that might just help you to be able to build a strong life. Hey, g'day, Dan.
Hey, Keith, how are you?
I'm doing well, thanks very much. Looks like you're ready for work there. It's good.
One of us has got to be, mate.
Yeah, I suppose you don't have to want one of these on the job normally, do you?
Yeah, normally I'm loud enough without it, but just ask Caleb. Beauty. Cheers, mate.
All good. Hey, Dan, first of all, tell us about your family a little bit and what you just love about being a dad at this time.
So my dad's stats, I've got four kids. I've got a 7-year-old named Florence, a 5-year-old named William. I've got a 2-year-old called Hazel, and I've got a 0-year-old called Sienna.
And how old is Sienna actually?
I'm a dad, so I work in years. Yeah, you've got to be of the female variety to get weeks, months.
Understand that, right?
And that thing, but she's...
Really, it's very, very recent. Great to see them in church this morning too. Hey, I know it's a bit of a leading question, but what work do you do, Dan? What's your day job?
I'm a carpenter.
Okay. Yeah. And that's going to come out a little bit this morning. And I wanted to give some examples of this. So I thought I'd better have someone beside me who knows what he's talking about. You know, you've often heard the little expression, every man needs a shed. Well, we couldn't get a shed here today, but we got a workbench. And I was reflecting on this a little bit, even into some of the things that we're going to talk about this morning of building a strong life. This workbench is actually 70 years old. It was made by my dad. It was his bench. And then I got it handed down to me, and it currently is now my son's workbench. It's been through floods, and yet it's survived. It's as strong as the day it was built. I thought, wouldn't it be good, guys, if that's what our life was? The strength of our life had capacity to pass down through generations. The things that really mattered, not just some things put together with a hammer and nail, but really, really matter. Okay, so today we're going to have a look at some things that might just help us on this. Hey, Dan, you're in the building trade. What is the real symbol of the building trade? What's the the tool that's most given the example of that?
I think you've only got to go to the big green shop that sells more sausages than anything else, but and realise that the mighty hammer, even though we don't use it for a large proportion of what it was designed for originally, with our nail guns and all that sort of stuff now, I think it's hard to go past Old Faithful.
Okay, so hammer was originally just predominantly for nails and that type of thing, but what are the sort of things you use it for now?
Oh, well, I guess it depends what game you're in. Us chippies use it for, occasionally we drive a nail with it, but usually we pull nails with it, or we just move something with it, or we just break a sheet with it, or if we forget our can opener for smoko, then it might turn into a can opener. Plasterers will use it to punch holes for PowerPoints, and if you're a plumber, I don't want to know what you get over it. And if you're a sparky, you've got to weigh down those 100 bills somehow, but so it works as a paperweight as well.
And then there's guys like me that are not trained. We use hammer for other things and they never work again.
Yeah, you can. I mean, they're versatile. I think the hammer that gets bought, think it's only going to drive nails, is a disappointed hammer, because I think this one's dug as many holes as it has driven nails. So they're an extension of your arm. You can do them.
And I guess even the fact you talk about them being able to be used for so many different things, a little bit like that as dads, isn't it? Multifaceted. The job specification for fathers didn't come out with just one line on it. It just seems like anything that needs to be fixed, whatever needs to be done, whatever errand is going, hey, dads, become part of fixing that up. So I guess we're a little bit like a hammer.
Yeah, exactly right, Keith. I think, if you think as a man, whether you be a father or not, but just as a bloke, if you think that God put you on this earth to just drive nails or to just pull out nails or whatever, then one, you're limiting God, and two, I think you're limiting what God can do through you. We are designed to do a whole bunch and a whole range of stuff. Some as glorious as, I don't know, maybe driving a nail in one strike or something like that, and some as maybe unglorious as just digging a bit of dirt out of the way because it's in our way or whatever. So, yeah.
Dan, just picking up on that thing about the hammer, we just already alluded to the fact that some people are pretty good at it and others, you don't want it in their hand.
Yeah. This is, yeah.
Just what about the concept of us as guys, okay, and say relative to God in that regard? How would you see that's something that...
Yeah, so I think, like, I wouldn't call a hammer like a greatly skillful tool. Like, obviously, the more you use it, the more skillful you get with it, or maybe just the less dangerous you become with it. But certainly, a hammer in the hands of the right person is a very productive and useful tool, or in some ways, a very good destructive tool. And I guess if we were to liken ourselves to the hammer, much the same with us with God, that if we are a tool in the master's hand, if we're a hammer in God's hand, then what he can achieve through us, if we realize that we're a simple little hammer, we don't have to do much. It's all about the arm. It's actually not about the hammer. Then you can achieve some pretty, I imagine, some pretty amazing things through God as the swinger, not us as the hammer.
So I guess that's even our first challenge today, as we look at this Father's Day, is to ask ourselves in our life, is it really just about us and our skills and all those things, although they're important for us to be able to understand and hone and to grow in and have the knowledge of, but maybe it's more important to be able to know who are we really being used by. And as Dan just said, when we learn that God is the master craftsman and that he wants to use our life and has a purpose for each one of our lives, regardless of who we are, then we can achieve something very, very beautiful and creative. There's a reading that comes out of Psalms and says this: "Answer me quickly, O Lord. My spirit fails. Do not hide your face from me, or I will be like those who go down to the pit. Let the morning bring the word of your unfailing love, for I have put my trust in you. Show me the way I should go, for to you I lift up my soul. Rescue me from my enemies, O Lord, for I hide myself in you. Teach me to do your will, for you are my God, and may your good spirit lead me on level ground. For your name's sake, O Lord, preserve my life. In your righteousness, bring me out of trouble." The writer there was expressing this concept: God, I can't do this on my own. I'd love you to show me. I'd love you to use me in whatever ways that you want me to be able to do. And so we see there that there's a need for a firm resolve in our lives to ask God to teach us, to guide us, and then we are able to find the purpose for what it's for. Not all tools are the same, though, are they, Dan? Okay, and we've got a few around here now, and I just noted one down here because it came out of one of those verses, but a thing called a spirit level. Yep. You got one of those?
I've got about 6 or 7 of those.
6 or 7.
You've got one here.
I think there's one on the front, a spirit level. Okay. What's a spirit level you really use for it, Dan? I mean...
So the level is used to test if something is level. We're really smart in the building industry, so we don't complicate it too much. But that's a level, and that's a plumb stick. But no, so it's just used to test if something is true, if something is level. So it's horizontal in a perfectly horizontal plane. So
the temptation, of course, is you just look at it with our naked eye. It might look okay, but this is the standard that shows whether it's really, really true. Are we true?
Good enough.
You want a quote from him after?
Can't see it from my place.
Well, it's just that I was interested, in that verse I just read before, it says, "Teach me to do your will, for you are my God. May your good spirit lead me on level ground." And I thought to myself, we call that the spirit level. Wouldn't it be great, even as us guys, that we said, God, I'd love your spirit level in my life, the level of your spirit, whatever it is that's true, the integrity that you want me to be able to live by, that I will allow that to be part of my life. Hey, Dan, the other thing is that I got here too a little bit is that I found this at home, and this is a chisel. Now, I have no idea how old this one is, but it's been pretty well worn and rough over the years. Can that be brought back?
I'd agree.
So what would I have to do?
It can be brought back, Keith.
What would you have to do with that?
That would probably need a good hit with either a grinding or a whetstone or whatever to start with.
Yep.
And then a honing on like a diamond stone or whatever choice. But it would need a fair bit of time. It'd need a fair bit of work. But once you invested that in it or whatever, it would be back. It'd be as true and good as any other one that you've ever used.
Okay.
It's never beyond. If someone's willing to invest the time and care and love into this chisel, it could be as good
It'll
as any
come
other
back.
chisel ever. Yeah.
So again, the application of our life, sometimes we might feel a bit either weathered or overused, or find that, we're just not as sharp as we thought we were in the effectiveness of our life.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
But God can come and he can bring us back to that place. It could be a little bit painful and take time.
That's right. There might be some heat and some grinding involved, but
Yeah, and we don't like
he'll
that.
get us back. Yeah.
Okay, but he could get us back to what we are. Okay.
Heck yes, or better.
And that's pretty important. There's a verse in Proverbs chapter 10 and 17 that says this: "He who heeds discipline shows the way to life, but whoever ignores correction leads others astray." So there's probably times in our life that we actually do need a little bit of grinding, a little bit of filing or sandpaper, whatever's necessary, to be able to bring us back to a place where we're the effective to way we are meant to be able to be. Hey, Dan, also, I haven't got one here again, but a saw.
There's one on your left there, kid.
One on the left?
Prepared earlier.
Okay. Now, Dan, I know that these are, some people, it's just now the good electric one, you go like that, but
the reciprocating saw's killed the handsaw.
it has. But this is well used, isn't it? And it can be used well. And what's the secret of that?
So the handsaws, you still can do things with chisels and handsaws that you can't do with any power tool still to this day, so that's reassuring. But handsaws is all about, not so much about the saw, but it's about your positioning. It's about your line of sight. So if you want to cut something, whether it be in a vise or on top of a saw bench or whatever, but to cut something well, it's about positioning your arm and your hand and your fingers and your line of sight over your material when possible. Sometimes you're just up here doing these sort of things, but when possible, get in position, and then the saw will follow your eyes. The saw will follow your motions and your hands, and so the saw itself will just be an extension of the person using it.
That's a great phrase. The saw is the extension of the person using it. So the Bible in many places tells us to be like God, to be holy, for he is holy.
Sure.
So like the saw, if we go back to this first commitment, we're talking about being used by him, we become an extension of God and what he's doing.
Yeah, very much.
That's a fairly powerful sort of thing. The other thing is that I was contemplating, and not only talking to Dan, but talking to many of you out there who are skilled in many of these things, that when we get tools, we want to have good sort of tools, don't we? Good quality for the use that they've got them for. Sometimes we buy things that are not up to scratch. Well, then they just won't do the job that we want. And we're reminded that if we're using this morning the illustration that we are like a tool in God's hands, or like the hammer, we're reminded that he made us well. In Psalm 139, verse 14, it says, "I praise you because I am fearfully and wonderfully made. Your works are wonderful. I know that full well." Do you know, God does not do like second rate or inferior when he makes you. And you are a part of the creation of God. And as such, he wants to then use us in something purposeful in our lives. And so God has made each one of us, but as we said before, a tool is only as effective as in the hands of the master. Now, today I've also asked someone else to come up and maybe just help us out a little bit as we go through this. And Ian, is Ian handy? I lost him. No, here he's coming. Okay. Let's welcome Ian as he comes up this morning. How are you? You come and stand in here.
Keith. Is it Smoko yet? Not yet.
Hey, Ian.
Yes.
How many children do you have? And
have 3 children.
3 children?
Got 2 boys, Ben and Justin.
Yep.
And a daughter, Michaela.
Okay, and you've also...
And the boys have married.
Yeah.
So then that's an advantage. So then you get an extra 2 daughters.
Oh, that's pretty good.
So Lucy and Nina.
There you go. And also now you've got some grandchildren. How many grandchildren you got?
4 grandchildren. There's a couple here today, Charlie and Regan.
Okay.
And in Brisbane, Eleanor and Hamish.
Okay. I guess, Ian, what is it that you would say that over the years, first of all, as a father and then as a grandfather, what has brought you joy in your life?
I guess initially I think you get joy from spending time with your kids, and then grandkids come along and you live it all over again. But I guess on a deeper level, I think about real joy, it's choices. You know, as parents and dads, it's a pretty tough gig. And you make choices as they're little, and you think, wow, I hope I do the right thing, and they turn out all right.
Yeah.
And as they grow and, I guess when they're little, you try and teach them basics like manners and that sort of thing, be, polite and that sort of thing. And before you know it, they're growing up, making bigger decisions and that sort of thing. And I guess you look at them and think, yeah, they're making some good choices.
That's right.
And you feel like, you might have had an influence on that, And from little things, like I said, like manners, but then through to your faith as well, you try and pass that on. And as you see them grow and develop in their own faith, that brings great joy.
Tremendous. Hey, I wonder if too, some of you out there who've transitioned from being a parent to a grandparent, have you found that a lot of the things you did as a parent just went out the window when you became a grandparent? And sometimes your grandkids get away with stuff that your own kids never did, things like that. Great to be a grandparent. And you're also involved in the building game, okay? Renovating and...
Well, home and property maintenance, so basic stuff like building little things like this.
Okay, that's good. So, okay.
Not too serious.
Yep. So if you know what it means to be able to build a sound structure, what do you see, though, as important, say, as a guy, as a man, as a father, building a sound structure in your own life? What are some of the things that come to your mind?
Well, I guess if you think about building trade, or I had trade in aviation.
Okay.
So you think there's a lot of building standards, and especially in aviation, there's some standards there that you got to stick to, or other things, things could go quite bad. So, say for example, we're putting a propeller on an aeroplane, and you've got 6 bolts to put on. You go to grab them, and there's only 3. So you think, let's go down to Bunnings. Let's see if we can get some bolts. So, you go down the aisle, you might see Dan down there, and he might give you some advice. These would be good bolts. So you take them back and put them on the aeroplane. They might work all right for a little while, but they're not quite the right bolts. So if you take shortcuts,
okay,
things may not turn out so well. So I guess it's in life. We've got standards and rules, and you've been telling us a bit from the Bible there today. There's some good rules and guidelines in the Bible, a bit like building. If we've got to stick to the right standards, the right rules, and things most likely will turn out better.
I was just reading actually in the Psalms just recently that the person who wrote it just says, I love your laws because they set me in the right direction.
Yeah,
that's my freelance thing of it. But yeah, that's for sure, Ian. Okay, that's really, really good. Well, hey, listen, to both Dan and Ian, in many ways our world today has some very tough challenges for new generations. I think all of us out there accept that. We just got to listen to the news, read the paper, be on social media. Some of the challenges there, particularly for some of us in the older generation, they weren't even there a decade or a generation ago. What are the hopes that each of you have and the dreams for your family? Okay, so Ian, why don't you start? What are just hopes and the dreams that you have going forward a little bit?
Well, I guess a little bit like I said, you look at them growing, making good choices, and in life, we deal with decisions and choices every day. We don't always make the right ones. But I think about if we can learn, maybe if we make a wrong choice and you think, oh, maybe that wasn't so good. It's about learning from that too. It might be a bit painful at the time, but if we can learn and grow and move on, I think that's a good thing. And if you see that in your kids, learning, growing, it's great.
It is, because we don't get a master's in fatherhood, do we, before we start? It just, you get thrown in the deep end and away you go.
Learn as you go. Yeah.
Learn as you go, yeah. Dan?
I remember holding Florence for, the first couple of weeks of her life. And I remember sort of just, praying over her and stuff and just being like, I have no idea what you're going to be like. I have no idea what personality traits God is weaving into you, and I have no idea what career you're going to end up in. And I remember as a father kind of holding this stranger, being like, I don't know, and I've got no control. Ultimately, the environment she grows up in is going to have a say in it and stuff. But, you're going to be who you're going to be. And I guess for me, there was just this real prayer of desperation that I guess whoever you are and whoever you're going to become, I just trust that you do it. I hope you do it all for God. I hope that whoever you are, you become the best that God wants you to be. And I don't know what the future holds for you, but He does. And I trust that, like, when I'm holding you and feeling absolutely useless as a father, when He's looking down on you and feeling absolutely epic as a father, He knows where you're going. And I trust that, my prayer is that she walks and all of them walk that road and stuff. So I think my dream for all my kids and for the next generation is ones that they will just surrender to God's will, fully and follow Him and see where He takes them.
It's very special.
Yeah.
You know, the Bible speaks about the fact, we're talking about today about being a hammer in the hand of God and being able to be well used by Him. And the Bible speaks about the fact that when we do that, we actually become righteous. In other words, we talked about before the saw becoming an extension of the arm that was using it. When God takes us and we make ourselves available to Him, He puts a righteousness into our lives. Now, we know as fellas that it's fairly easy for us to mess up in life, but God understands that and forgives us. And the righteousness He puts into us is not just making us better, it's a righteousness that comes from His own heart. And I found a verse just recently on this that talks about what are the results of righteous people. In Proverbs 10:21 it says, "The lips of the righteous nourish many, but fools die for lack of judgment." And I was thinking about that as far as we are as guys. If we are an extension of God, if we are allowing Him to flow into our life and through our life in whatever we're doing, it says, from what comes from our lips will be a nourishment to others. And I reflect in this day and age, even homes and families, many are desperate for a speaking that brings nourishment rather than just pulling down. Desperate for someone to come and to affirm into young lives that there is a hope and there is a future. Someone to be able to love people when they skin their knees, not only physically, but also emotionally and otherwise. And the Bible says this happens when we're righteous. Secondly, it says, in Proverbs 11 and verse 11, through the blessing of the upright, a city is exalted. Hervey Bay today is not only dependent upon our council, our state government, our bureaucrats, our civic leaders, as tremendous as many of the work that they're doing. But our city today is dependent upon how righteous men will live before God. And the capacity for us to be able to do that can exalt our city, the Bible says. And then just one other out of Proverbs in 11:25. If we have this sense of sharing the generosity of God through our life as righteous people, it says, a generous man will prosper, and he who refreshes others will himself be refreshed. In other words, it's not the attitude of give me, I'll take, I want, I'll take it into my life. When we share the generosity that's been shown to us, we become refreshed. I guess that would be one of my prayers for all of us today as we're here. Hey, listen, the other thing too is just a verse out of Ephesians 2 that it says this: we are His workmanship, created in Jesus to do good works, which God prepared in advance for us to do. Hey guys, today, let's just take this for a moment. The challenge is this: will we be a hammer for God? Will we be a hammer for God? We may not be just doing one thing that we like to do. We might have to do multiple things, as Dan said. Stuff that we don't even know if it's comfortable, but if we're a hammer for God, He's going to use us. He's going to create us into something special. And through us then, to be able to do good works, which He's already prepared. And as Ian alluded to, I think, He's got the blueprint for us to be able to follow as we go forward. This morning, a little bit soon, I'm going to do something really different. But first of all, I just want to tell a story that I told last night. About 100 years ago, there was a young aspiring businessman who was becoming very successful. So when there was very few vehicles on the road, he bought himself a Model T Ford. Drove it around proudly to show it off, and as though his status was lifted by that. One day it broke down. As he's on the side of the road and trying to figure out what was the problem, an older gentleman came along and said, "Can I help you?" He was a little bit offended because he looked at this man's generation and thought, what would he know about something as modern and technical as this? So he said, probably because of the pride of his heart, "No, thank you, I'll be fine." The older gentleman, sensing that, just took a moment and he said to him, "Young man, my name is Henry Ford and I built that car." I would just like to put on the workbench today that Jesus Christ is here and he says to you and to me, "My name is Jesus Christ and I built you. I created you before the world, in my mind before the world even came into being." If we overcome the pride of our heart and prepare to be able to follow him and be used by him, I think we can have an amazing life. Okay, we have a couple of things that we're going to do now, and then I'll tell you how we're going to do after that. First of all, have we got things, Dale? Bring that up. We've got a giveaway. Dan, this is...
Oh, I'll take it.
You the prize.
This is a toolbox that Dan's put together while we've been here today, and we're going to give it away, but we also have with it a hammer to some person. And this...
It's a 20-ounce S-wing hammer, to be specific.
Okay. Means nothing to me.
It's the Rolls-Royce of hammers.
It's the Rolls-Royce of hammers, eh?
Yeah.
Not that one, okay. Thanks, Dan, for that. Appreciate Dan's donated that. Okay, so this is not a second-hand hammer, and this is not a second-hand toolbox. We're going to give it away to some dad here today. Who's going to pick it? Ian, do you want to pick it out?
If you're not into tools, I can guarantee that this actually fits behind the back seat of a car. It holds nappies and wipes. It's
You got it? Do you want to read it out, Ian?
For it.
Okay, Ian, do you want to read that out?
Looks like a blue ticket. 076.
Blue ticket 076. Does someone have 076 here today?
Yeah.
076? Okay, there we are. Okay.
There's no warranty on the workmanship, by the way.
Okay. Also, hey, after you go out today, on the way out, guys, there's a ginger beer for each of you, okay? And it'll be at the bar. At the table.
The bark of the church.
At the table, just up the back there. You can either have that for morning tea or you can take it home with you. And hey, that's not just for dads, but hey, any of the guys here today, from young adults up, love you to be able to take one of those and to be able to have you with you. Hey, this is what I'd like to, just now, to be able to invite the singing group to come out. They're going to sing a song, and we've heard it before. I'd like you to just stay seated and just listen to the words of this. And fellas, if this is the commitment of your heart, that you just reflect that as the group sings it to us today. And then what I'm going to ask to do after that is this. I'm going to invite all the guys here today. If you'd love to join us down the front to be able to finish this service. I was just thinking in my heart, I would love to just see a prayer pit or a prayer scrum, whatever you want to call it, of guys, men, who before we go home today, we just come together, we stand side by side, we pray with one another for a few minutes, and we just say, we want to be a hammer, a tool in the hand of our God. So after, we'll just listen to the team to be able to sing. Then after that, we'll go and sit down. After that, we'll come and just stand at the front. And I'm just going to love all the men who feel welcome to come and join us for a few minutes before we go home today, to be able to invite God into our lives in a very, very special way. Thanks, team.